All right, so in this video what I'm going to do is just basically demonstrate how we take a dimensioned multi-view or orthographic drawing and we try to turn that into an object in Onshape. So as I look at this drawing, the first thing that I'm noticing is that, as somebody in class pointed out, that it's basically 3 cubes worth wide and it's 3 cubes worth tall. And so if I look at my overall dimensions, my overall width of the object from the left side to the right side is 2.25 inches. And the overall height of this object is also 2.25 inches. So there's a few different ways that I could do this in Onshape. One way we could call the subtractive method. Another way we could call an additive method. What I'm going to do to start off with is use what you might call an additive method. In other words, I'm going to start and I'm going to build up an object from multiple parts instead of starting with one big giant chunk and kind of carving away from that. Okay? We can kind of practice both of those things, but to start with, I'm going to use the additive method. So what that means for me is, I think what I'd like to do is I'd like to make this first piece over on the side right here that's like 3 cubes high, and I know based on what I'm seeing here that that is 1 cube's worth wide, which is 0.75. So to get started, I'm going to make a new sketch. I'm going to put it on my front plane because I know this is the front of the object. I'm going to go to my front view, and I'd like you to try kind of practicing and following along with me as I'm doing this as well. So on my front view, I can see that the basic shape of this thing is just a rectangle. Like if I divide it up a little bit, it's just a rectangle. So I'm going to start by drawing a rectangle. Now if I look at my multi-view drawing, I know what the dimensions of that section is. I know that based on the height dimension right here, that it is 2.25 inches high. And even though it's not shown on this drawing right here, I know that one of those cubes is 0.75 inches. So I'm going to make a rectangle that starts at the bottom left corner, and I'm going to say that it's 0.75 inches wide by 2.25 inches tall. Okay? So that gives me sort of my starting point for the object from the front view. Now I need to think about this little section in here. And I probably should have had another dimension in here, but if each cube is 0.75 inches wide, that tells me that this section here is 0.7 inches wide as well. And the other thing is, because I see that that's 1 cube's worth high, that means that that height is also 0.75. So what I'm going to do is, I'm still in my sketch, I'm just going to make another rectangle over to the side here. This part's kind of important to see in Onshape though, so make sure you're taking a look at this. Just like I started that rectangle by going to the origin, that center point, I'm going to start this next rectangle making sure that I'm intersecting with the first one. So if you look, I get a little orange dot that shows up there. I'm going to click and drag out and type in 0.75 and hit enter and type 0.75. So that gives me that next section of the object right here. Now the last thing that I need is this little part that sticks up on the right side of the object. And I've got a dimension for that. I can see that it's 1.5 inches high and it's 0.75 inches wide. So I'm going to do the exact same kind of thing. I'm going to come over and make one more rectangle. I'm going to make sure that it's starting at the intersection here, so I get that little orange dot. I'm going to click and drag up and type in 0.75 for the width and 1.5 for the height. And now that I've done that, I'm good with this sketch. I've got all the pieces that are in there, and if you can check, you can see that it looks like the front view based on the drawing, right? That's kind of like a nice check to see that it works out. I'm going to go ahead and click the green check mark here, and now I've got this sketch that has 3 kind of distinct sections. Now the last thing I need to know is, how deep or thick is this object? And for this, what I need to do is look at my top view, because the top view of the object shows from front to back. It's super important that you get this, so make sure you're tracking with me here. Make sure you're looking at the screen. The top view of the object shows from the front to the back of the object, right? Because if I'm looking at something from the top, here's the front of the object, here's the back of the object, and the distance between there is the thickness or depth of the object. And what this tells me is this is 0.75 inches deep. So when I go to extrude, I can actually click on all 3 of these, 1, 2, 3, and tell it to extrude 0.75 inches. If I click the green check, I can see that I've got my part. And if I look at the real part that I'm holding in my hands right now, I can confirm that, yep, that makes sense. Those are the correct sizes and dimensions because it looks just like the one that I'm holding in my hand here.